lot of talk going on here, but I have not seen any recorded fish kills when temperatures exceed 75 degrees for 5 consecutive days like it happened last summer. So that's why I'm confused. When 75 degrees maximum is not causing any problem or fish kill, why would I should be making releases to prevent temperatures exceeding 65 degrees? I need a ton of water to do this.
Well, you're about 2 steps beyond where I am. Not killing and suitable aren't the same thing. And so, I mean, wouldn't you want to know what the best temperature is?
We want this investigation to be considering what do the trout need and the other macroinvertebrate, the other species, what do they need as a temperature regime for not just to survive, but to
Right.
Nobody has disagreed with that statement that cold water could be extended to Narrowsburg. I haven't seen a single scientist who's argued that it could be extended to Narrowsburg and still meet the other uses of the system. And so the question is it's not a de facto, we can't do Narrowsburg, but let's have an open discussion about where we can extend cold water to and where we need a cool water transition to. That's an open question, and there is no presumption.
That is a function, though, however, of what is released out of the reservoirs. It is not a function of what could be released out of the reservoirs. No one knows the answer to that question, do they? If you put artificial constraints because there's a paradigm that says there is not enough water that can be released, then there won't be enough water, and you'll parse the river according to that paradigm. So my suggestion is try and discount that if you can, because there may be more water than you think.
The key to solving the summertime habitat problem is a recognition, again to the discussion this is just held here, that a release policy can and should be based on forecasts of anticipated actual New York City water diversions. As we have argued in the past, to manage the river as if New York City will take an annual average of 800 million gallon diversion right now, when we know full well that it would only take an annual average of, say, 500 million gallons, is to unnecessarily punish all other constituents and the environment for the next 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, everything else. Our statement that Jim and I made back in January 2008, that we submitted to DRBC, entitled Augmented Flexible Flow Management Plan, documents the substantial magnitude of the punishing effects of such misrepresentations of the city's actual usage. Sustainability does not require that we act today as if the worst diversion case is currently happening. Our proposal calls for higher releases when anticipated diversions are lower, precisely because such a policy converts wasteful spills to ecologically useful flows. When anticipated diversions are high, the plan should reduce releases to prudent levels. Makes sense, doesn't it? Makes so much sense that you ask, why is it not happening? This augmented policy, by recognizing the reality of what is happening in the system, provides for greatly increased trout habitat in the upper Delaware region, including highly significant gains in the upper mainstem. I'm talking about well over 100% increases. Today, I want to startle you, perhaps, by drawing your attention to the table. When forecasted New York City diversions are 500 or less, you can afford to release from Cannonsville 700 cubic feet per second genocide in normal conditions. And from Pacton 200. In doing that, you will not violate the drought day constraint. And you will have an enormous benefit to the habitat. I want to emphasize here again something that's not contained in this document, which I've said before, needs to be said again. Every drop of water that New York City does not divert is going down that river. The only issue is the timing. And our concern is to make the timing optimal. So this discussion about giving more water, wait, nobody's giving anything, that water's going down the river. You can easily afford to release during the summertime, in normal conditions, out of Kansville 600, famous Couchy number, the FUDR number, if you will. And now we've got the results in hand that document that this can safely be done, given that you recognize what New York City is actually diverting. This research has shown that you can protect the environment and mitigate, at least slightly, the potential for flooding, all at no real increase in risk in New York City. For those of you who don't know, so I'm a New York City resident. I'm very concerned with New York City's interests. We owe it to the inhabitants of the Delaware River and the citizens of New York and New Jersey and Pennsylvania and Delaware to do this. Let's get on with that. I mean, being involved in this project for so many years here, what we see is a glacial movement. Wonderfully, we see some movement, but it is glacial. I come to this thing and I have to hold myself in my seat because this is not an action-oriented group, is it? If you can find a reason for avoiding action, that seems to be the theme here. Well, this is doable work. Let's get on with it, guys.
Okay, city can start taking 800 MGD next year. If some reason or other it can happen, the city may be required to do 800 MGD. If there is, I'm not speculating anything, if there's a problem with the Catskill or the total system, they have to drop to 800 MGD to come up with their demand, they are entitled to do that. How can I have a program established based upon 500 MG diversion, 700 CFI run for 3 years? Are the fishermen going to allow us to destroy the whole thing that has happened over 3 years? And the releases get back to the current level or go back to 1983 level?
Not paying much attention to them now.
To say allow,
Anyway,
well, you're giving them a lot of credit,
I think
aren't
we're
you?
getting, we're getting into an area there where we're not gonna.
We're talking about
we're not gonna settle it
sustainability of
today.
the fisheries program, but all these
I think-
programs are not sustainable.
Catch me up if I don't paraphrase this properly. The argument's being made that if you cannot sit here today and say that you can implement this program at higher release levels for every single year going into the next century, then you can never do it. And therefore we must, for the next century, punish this river. We must tolerate having 100%, 200%, 300% less trout habitat than is possible. And we must punish those who are potential victims of flooding. And we must punish the dwarf wedge mussels, because we cannot sit here and say into the next century that I guarantee you will do it every day. I'm saying I think this is an artificial constraint, another set of handcuffs. I remember, forgive me, Dr. Morel-Nahar, but remember the very first presentation I made in this room. And you said these were interesting ideas, essentially the ideas that led to FFNP, but your thinking is out of the box. And those of us in this room, our job is to stay in the box. Well, I think it's time to get out of that darn box. And we've been arguing for taking handcuffs off. But being prudent. And I think it's prudent to lay out a scheme where the moment New York City comes to me and says, my anticipated use of the next year or 2 years is jumping from 540 to 765, we change the program. And we change the program because it's written already in stone, agreed to among the degrees parties.
But Dr. Colliser, experience has shown, you have to confess, that since 1965 when we embarked on the program, it has always been more and more and more, but there has never been a case we were allowed to cut back. If we establish a program based upon this hypothetical releases, you can never take it back. Unless you have
We've already established
The
that.
cutback is in the table.
You already
The
did the
cutback is part of
cutback,
the
are you
proposal.
kidding?
you are going to get back to fisheries program.
It's here.
You took it
It's
back.
getting
You
late in
have that
reality.
power,
It's
you
getting
used
late.
it.